Hello and welcome to Policy Watch. I am Vishal Dahiya. This week we will take a look at two issues, but let's begin with net neutrality. The Telecom Commission this week approved the National Digital Communications Policy, or the new telecom policy, which aims to create 4 million jobs and bring in investments to the tune of $100 billion. The Commission has also approved the recommendations made by TRAI 8 months ago on the issue of net neutrality. This means that telecom and internet service providers will have to treat all data on internet equally and not discriminate or charge differentially by user, content, site, platform or application. So what are the highlights of the new telecom policy, specifically new net neutrality, and how will it impact the users in India? For more on this, we're joined by two distinguished guests in the studio today. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with Mr. Ganapathy Subramaniam, Bureau Chief, Puthiya, Thalaimurai, and we also have with us Mr. S.D. Saxena, former Director Finance of BSNL. Let me begin with you, Mr. Saxena, to try and understand the new rules on net neutrality. These are the same recommendations which were given by TRAI 8 months ago. We had a lot of a discussion on the public forum about these rules, but now that they've been approved by the Telecom Commission and will formally be made as rules, what are the highlights here?
See, the highlight is that internet should be available to all equally. I think in a single sentence, if I say that, that is the basic import of the policy. So that anyone who is accessing internet and is accessing a site should get the same speed and the same download as anybody else. So that was the basic intent of this policy. And perhaps you know that the debate went on because some of the companies and some of the operators who had financial muscles and capital were offering the internet at a much faster speed so as to get a business advantage. And that became a major issue because internet, is one of the most beautiful technology of this world, which brings everybody at par. And because the operators and some of the companies wanted to question that or to redefine that, the debate started. And because this debate started, ultimately, it was decided that no, we will maintain the democracy of internet so that everybody gets it at the same speed and nobody gets any benefit out of it.
One argument which was given by the entire net neutrality lobby, when the entire discussion which you were pointing out was happening, was the examples which you cited from the developed world. For example, the rules which are in prevalence in the United States of America, although most of the developed countries do adhere to the net neutrality rules. But then what's the difference here, and how will we be in comparison to the global levels in terms of adhering to net neutrality rules?
So I would like to share with you one thing which is very basic in Indian telecom and the internet, and that is that the basic policy, the soul of the policy is that the poorest must get this benefit. Like if you look at any policy in telecom, they talk always about rural, and they always talk about providing connectivity to the poorest of poor. And that has been the basic idea. And this is the reason why India, although a lot of countries are now redefining this concept of neutrality, especially you may be aware that FCC has now given a go-by to this net neutrality in US, but India has adhered to that policy. And that, I think, is the strength of Indian democracy. I would say it is much more deeper than just giving access on data.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Ganapathy here. Mr. Ganapathy, if you look at the entire debate, again, which has been going on since the time these recommendations came into place, and now that they've been cleared by the Telecom Commission, the time has not been much, around 8 months. Do we see, that these rules will bring in some positive change? Although, almost all of us have access to internet right now, and that is something which, as Mr. Saxena was pointing out, brings everybody at par. So, is there some positive change we are looking at in terms of the use of internet when the net neutrality rules kick in?
Considering the constraints we have in physical infrastructure, digital leap is what is really going to help the masses. As Saxena ji pointed out, there is a very strong rural thrust. Even now also, government wants to provide free Wi-Fi in rural areas as well as urban areas. But the main focus is the rural areas, because people in the villages should be able to pay all their bills, book all their tickets, and buy or sell their products through their mobile phone. That facility, if it is available to them, it will help them overcome a lot of other physical constraints like no roads or no electricity or many other problems that they may be facing. All that can be overcome by this. On the issue of neutrality, the government has rightly decided to listen to the voice of the people to make sure that democracy is not disturbed. Today, one operator may give you free internet, saying that I'll give it free, but only for so-and-so site, so-and-so site, so-and-so use. That means he is discriminating against the others. Tomorrow, a bigger player will come and say, push all these things out, I'll give you free for some other sites, etc. Which means everybody is not getting equal opportunity. If a small village boy comes up with an application and he wants to make himself prominent, known by it, he wants to succeed with it, this discrimination will work against him. Therefore, this decision is very good. Also, when we get telecom penetration increasing exponentially, especially in the rural areas, this will be very helpful to us.
Okay, is this also going to give a push to the entire concept of digital India, Mr. Saxena? Although there are some exceptions here which have been included for critical services, which also include some critical finance services as well. Though we do not know as of now what kind of those services will be, which will be included into those critical services. But apart, leaving them apart, is this going to give that much required push to the entire concept of digital India, which has been talked about for quite a few years now?
You're very correct, because the connectivity to the digital media is changing life like anything. I have spent a lifetime in telecom, and when I look at things, it gives me goose pimples. मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो जाते हैं जब मैं देखता हूँ. I see a migrant laborer sending money on his mobile phone to his village. It is unbelievable. We can't do it sometimes. But a migrant laborer who is coming and working on a site here sends money home. And all the remittances of the government are going through the telephone and digital media. So those things are really changing lives in a much bigger way. I used to say that what telecom did. I still remember in my earlier days when we started changes in rural telecom, there was no road in that village. There was no electricity in that village, but we provided connectivity. And now that connectivity changed India. And I think we feel very proud of that. And this is being a further step. It is a qualitative improvement on that connectivity. So I believe that this is a very positive step, and net neutrality will take us pretty far.
Okay, one more suggestion which has come in, and rather a recommendation which has been accepted, is to go ahead and put in place a not-for-profit body to oversee the entire implementation of all these net neutrality rules as well, because all of us know that internet is for everybody, and there are several stakeholders involved as well. How easy or difficult it might be to enforce these net neutrality rules in these competitive times where you have big corporate houses or big companies trying to pump in more money and acquire monopoly over certain sectors or certain specific set of businesses?
While we talk about the benefits of digital revolution, there are also dangers and pitfalls. As you mentioned very rightly, Vishalji, we have to make sure that monopoly does not kill any business, because everybody should be free to grow their business and serve the people. It should not affect either the consumers nor the business. At the same time, today we may have 2-3 players. Tomorrow somebody bigger may come and try to edge them out. That is why independent supervision is necessary. At the same time, it will also help if we have a government player, that is the BSNL, MTNL combined, work very strongly. The government should make sure that they provide services which are as good as any private sector player. That means no private sector player will be able to fleece you or fleece me or any rural customer. So therefore, the opportunity that the digital revolution is providing us should be protected by ensuring this supervision. That is why this is also very, very important.
Well, that's a question which let's put to the our other guest, Mr. Saxena here, who was with BSNL. Mr. Saxena, in the competitive world of telecom services, as Mr. Ganapathy was pointing out as well, why is it that the public, service providers, for example, BSNL or MTNL, are they not able to keep pace with the competition, or is it that in the future we might see them coming up with some different sort of services which might take them a leap forward from other private players?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And see, I've worked in both the companies at the director level for 7 years each, so 14 years. I may claim to know these sectors for a very long time. The only thing where we start lagging behind as public sector companies is a little freedom of implementation. Because when the mobile services were launched, BSNL was given the license after almost 7 years. But in a period of 6 to 8 months, BSNL became the #2 player in the mobile services also. The only problem was that when we had to expand, we have to go through a very long procedure, which the private operators were not going. So perhaps a little bit of tweaking the rules and giving freedom will make them do as well or as good as any other operator. The other thing which is very important is that the rural focus, and another which I built up specially in BSNL, was the disaster management. When there is a problem which happens in an area, the first company which goes is BSNL. We go there to rescue people, we go there to provide connectivity and so on. So very rightly pointed out that these companies will have to be strengthened. There is also one thing on net neutrality, that there is a proviso which we should not forget, that there is equal speed for everyone, but there will be exceptions. The exception will be, for example, for telemedicine. If there is a surgery taking place, we will have to provide a faster speed. Or if there is a disaster, for disaster management, somehow we will have to give a little go-by to the net neutrality. The operators are also questioning one more thing, which is the Internet of Things. They are saying that in the Internet of Things, perhaps, there may have to be a little reconsideration. So, barring these three things, the net neutrality is the democracy of data speed for everyone.
Okay, so clearly, as our panelists have pointed out, that we moved one step ahead, and this is a win-win situation for the users specifically, wherein the net neutrality rules have finally been approved by the Telecom Commission and will be implemented shortly. We'll take a short break here, and when we come back, we will have a discussion on the institutions of excellence. Stay tuned.
I'm Akhilesh Suman and you're watching Indian Standard Time. We have the honor of having the President of Senate of Republic of Rwanda. So Excellency, how easy it is to run the Senate in your country?
All democracy has to accommodate realities, history, and the culture.
Right.
And what do you want to achieve really?
When 1 million people are killed, then it becomes a very difficult situation how to take all warring factions in mainstream. So how did your country manage this situation?
Gacaca, in the past in Rwanda, people sat together and they can discuss about their differences and find a solution.
Yeah.
And with those traditional courts codified now, or then, since they have been reintroduced to deal with genocide cases.
Watch Indian Standard Time with President of the Senate of Rwanda, Bernard Makuza, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Years of Modi government. How successful has been government's policy of capping the cost of major surgeries?
जहाँ प्राइवेट में आपसे 4-5 लाख रुपए मांगते हैं दोनों घुटने के, वहाँ पे 100 लाख रुपए में सारा काम निपट गया दोनों का।
सरकार जब फायदा दे रही है तो उठाना चाहिए उसका फायदा भी।
जो पहले स्टंट की कीमत हुआ करती थी 1-1.5 लाख रुपए, करीब उसकी 1/4 कीमत पे वो स्टंट मुझे डाला गया।
ये मरीज बताते थे कि हमें वहाँ पे इतना दे रहे हैं, सेम ब्रांड का ही, कहाँ 55,000, कहाँ वो तो काफ़ी कम हो गया। गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत अच्छा किया ये तो।
एनिलियन के हिसाब से जो दवाइयाँ एसेंशियल लिस्ट में शामिल की जाती थी वो ऑटोमेटिकली प्राइस के कंट्रोल में आ जाती थी।
Watch 4 years of Modi government only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Let's now look at institutions of excellence. The central government has shortlisted 6 institutions of eminence, including 3 from public sector and 3 from private sector. These institutions will be provided with greater autonomy to admit foreign students, recruit foreign faculty, offer online courses and enter into academic collaborations without UGC's permission. Each of these institutes will also get financial assistance up to 1,000 crore rupees over the period of next 5 years. This move is part of the government scheme to select 20 institutions of eminence, each from public and private sector, that will enjoy complete academic and administrative autonomy. So what will be the benefit of this kind of scheme and how it will help the students and institutes as well? We have 2 distinguished guests with us in the studio. Apart from Mr. Ganapathy Subramaniam, we also have with us Ms. Nupur Tiwari, Associate Professor and Head of Center for Public Policy and Planning at IIPA. Welcome again, both of you. Let me begin with you, Ms. Tiwari, to try and understand this scheme of the institutions of excellence. What is this scheme about and how have been these institutes selected?
Okay, it started with Shri Arun Jaitley ji giving his union budget speech when he mentioned that we should have some institute of excellence, basically to get as a world-class institutes. We have almost 800 universities which are there, but not at that level where we can talk about world-class institutes. So it started with that, and there's also some regulations which are made, like the one regulation in 2017 which came for private as well as public universities or institutes, whatever you call that. And there are certain regulations, as you said, which are given. They will be having administrative and academic autonomy, and 1,000 crore will be given to them. So, this empowered committee was set up, and then 6 institutes have got this center or Institute of Eminence, which is 2 IITs, Bombay and this Delhi, and you also have this Manipal, and you have this Geo, and then you have this Indian IISC, Bangalore. Okay. So this is the basic background to give them a world-class institutes with financial assistance to the public institutes and no financial assistance to the private institutes, except that they have complete autonomy.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Ganapathy here. Mr. Ganapathy, what are the fundamentals involved here? All of us know that there's been a lot of thirst as far as higher education is concerned in this particular government. When we come to different schemes, what is different here when we talk about schemes for other schemes for the higher education institutes as well? What is it different here that the government is trying to do?
We are trying to take a big leap forward. That's what the government said when they brought this scheme, that we need institutions which are at par with the international institutions of eminence. So therefore, they set up a committee of experts, and the committee went through a lot of deliberations. I know personally, Mr. Gopal Swami was a former union secretary and also election commissioner. He was asked to chair the committee, and they had a lot of discussions with various stakeholders. And finally, it was their recommendation which was given to the government, and the government has accepted those recommendations. Therefore, I know it is not some arbitrary decision, as you know, some people are creating a lot of controversies on that. However, it has been done with a proper format. Guidelines were framed first, and those guidelines were discussed by this committee. And Mr. Gopal Swami, everybody knows, is a person of eminence. He was an excellent officer and had a very good track record. So he personally went through all these discussions and finally came up with this list. That is why, therefore, the government has accepted it. Whatever may be the opinion of people, all that we will come to know later. But as far as the government is concerned, they have put in place a set of guidelines, gone through that with a committee which is independent, and then come to this conclusion.
Okay, Mr. Tiwari, one of the guidelines when Mr. Ganapathy spoke about the set of guidelines, and one of the guidelines, apart from almost all of them, is that these institutes will have to compete with the others and come into the top 500 institutes of the world in any of the prominent rankings which are to be done annually by several separate bodies. So it looks like that the special status comes with a lot of high expectations.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They have to pass the muster. I mean, as of now, it's just a tag which is given, and of course, some autonomy and financial assistance which is given. But there's much to go about that. Even those greenfield institutes which are mentioned, it's not that easy. In 5 years, they have to prove themselves. So there's much work attached with that. And I think it's a big assistance also to public institutes like under the UGC guidelines and all. Public institutes like the one which get the fundings from the government. But this financial assistance is also a big assistance which is given to them. But definitely they have to prove it within 5 years. Okay. It's a tag which is still has to be proved.
Okay, there are obviously stringent guidelines. They were before they were given the tag, and very tough targets have also been set. But if you look at the kind of facilities which are being provided to them, for example, they will be allowed to have around 20% of foreign students, then foreign faculty, collaborations with other universities as well, without UGC's permission. What is the rationale behind all this? Because UGC has been the body which has been looking after all these aspects of the higher education institutes.
These guidelines are once made, they are made for betterment of any institution which is existing. And as I said, we were not in a position to, even 800 universities were not in a position to compete with the world-class institutes. So having an interdisciplinary course, having a mixed match of foreign students as well as the Indian students, having certain facilities, which are the basics to excel, are what is actually there in the guideline. And also for the green, as I said, the proposed institutes or the greenfield institutes, there are four criterions, which it's just not like that it is proposed, but a very important criterions that you got to have a certain acres of land, you got to have certain team which is very highly qualified, you got to have an action plan for the whole year, and you got to have certain self-funding, to sustain yourself. Because even I'm not the assistance has been given to public universities, but what about the private universities? They fail in sustainability, in basic fundings. So how are they going to generate it? And they also depend on very much depend on the fees that they get from the candidates. So if they have a mixed match and this foreign students are encouraged, they will be, especially the private institutes, will be very much, having their own self-sustaining system will be enhanced. So these are the, keeping these things in mind, interdisciplinary and private funding, and also having a complete interaction with the world-class institutes. So this is going to be a good proposed guidelines which is there. I think so. Okay,
let me bring Mr. Ganapathy on that. Mr. Ganapathy, do you believe that quite stiff, expectations, high expectations for these institutions of excellence, or is it right that this kind of tag which has been given to these institutes and the kind of a grant which will be given to them and relaxations in rule which will be given to them should be matched with that level of excellence which they should reach in a particular set of time?
As far as the existing institutions are concerned, Vishalji, there is no controversy. All the controversy seems to be centered around one university which is yet to be set up, and people are rightly questioning why are you giving them this particular special importance when you are going to make sure that in future they have to do certain things, whether they will do it or not. How are you very sure about it? But today, if you see institutes of eminence from India, the IITs, the IMMs, the Indian Institute of Science, and some institutes run by non-government organizations. Apart from that, where do we have top world-class institutions? That is why this is a new attempt. Whether this will succeed or not will be known later. And also there is a name of an industrial house that is being linked and political connections, etc. But then that the industrial house, this is not going to be run as a business. This is going to be part of their social service activities, like what they call as CSR, corporate social responsibility, like a foundation. So therefore, it is very easy to question all these things. But at the same time, we should see the intention behind it. The intention behind it is to give students an opportunity to study in a world-class institution without being forced to pay the kind of fees that you will have to pay when you go to such an institution. So therefore, the idea is good. Whether it is going to work out or not, that future will decide. But right now, it's a good experiment that has been started. There can be a lot of discussion, but experiment has to be done to see whether it will succeed. Otherwise, it will never happen, Vishalji.
Okay, let's take in Mr. Tiwari on that. Good experiment for ensuring that autonomy as well as accountability move hand in hand.
It's not experiment, I would say. It's I think researched and it's conceived in that way. That's going to definitely give good result. And now all the controversy or whatever is coming up, it's not that they have any expert committee has taken a decision in one day and out of blue it's coming up. If there is any kind of debate, it should have happened that this is a botched or this is a wrong policy in 2017 when it came. Now it's long time we have passed that scenario. Now there were 11 greenfield institutes which proposed that, okay, this is what is our within those four parameters we propose this, out of which one was selected. For instance, I'm saying that. Now 5 years will be given to them. As of now, we cannot debate on that because that is already in 6.1 clause of UGC guideline 2017. So that is set up and decision has been taken as per the guideline. How they are going to prove themselves is an institutional matter which they are going to take care of.
But the students are said to benefit, as Mr. Ganapathy was pointing out, because they are the ultimate, end users as far as institutions are concerned.
Well, it's designed in that way, and I, as coming from academia, coming from this kind of background, institutional background, I think you got to have a good infrastructure. You got to have an exchange of, interdisciplinary courses, not that stereotype courses. You got to have the best faculty which is there, which you can call only if you have the finances with you, and autonomy. Without autonomy, if you every time you are working within those set criterion, then I don't think so. This is autonomy, and financial assistance is definitely a big support to making these institutions to the institutions of excellence.
Okay, so as our panelists are pointing out that once again the focus has been on providing autonomy to the higher education institutes, but the autonomy will go hand in hand with accountability, with some set of guidelines which will have to be followed by these institutions of excellence. And it is indeed going to be a win-win situation for the students who will study at these institutions. We'll come back again next week with 2 different topics and a different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.